You, if you can hold your conversations for just a minute.
That's the way it's done.
And just stand. I think nobody can see what so stand.
Okay.
Even then, I don't think anyone can see you.
Maybe the photographers can get some space for people to see as well.
I'm Sarah Jacob. I'm a old college friend of Avantika's. And you know, when Avantika asked me to come this evening, I said you wouldn't keep me away. I'm so glad you did this because when I'm at work and I'm a journalist and I work with NTV, we're talking about Ukraine all the time.
Just turn up the sound.
We're talking about this war, humanitarian crisis, economic fallout, global impact, India's stand, how we be judged, by history. And but it gives me a lot of pleasure to be here today because we will be a part of a different narrative. And there are so many images about this war that we see in the papers.
Can we please have some silence? Thank you.
On our TV screens, and it's the point is you see these battle cities, but what do we really know of them? What do we know of people who live in them? What is their real story? So I'm just so grateful that I could be here because through these images, perhaps we can just humanize the story and what's happening. And of course, I'm very glad to have he needs no introduction, member of parliament, a man who knows everything about foreign policy, and I know everybody wants to just get your views on this. So I'm just going to go ahead and ask you, I think what everyone wants to know is we have the foreign minister of Russia planning to come to India in the next week. This will be the senior-most leader from Russia arriving here ever since this invasion began on the 24th of February. This visit comes on the heels of calls from Washington, the prime ministers of Quad. So, where does India stand and how difficult, how much of a challenge is it for India to chart out a diplomatic path in this war between Ukraine and
Thank you, Sarah. And before I actually respond to her question, I do want to say this turnout is very impressive. It'd be nice if we can hold our conversations for just a few minutes so we can actually officially inaugurate this exhibition. It's a wonderful, wonderful collection of photographs. Avantika traveled in Ukraine in January, and we've seen the results on the walls of this lovely space here at the Habitat Center. I think that, as Sarah Jacobs said, it humanizes Ukraine for many of us who have not been there. She also has a very, very interesting eye. And as a result, she has really brought life to various images of Ukraine, of buildings and landscapes, and to some degree, very few people, but some people as well. And I think that's absolutely fascinating because you get to see a place with a certain level of poignancy because we don't know whether any of those buildings in the pictures are still standing after the relentless bombing that has gone on in the last few weeks, the last 5 weeks. It's been a hard time for the people of Ukraine, and I think all of us who've come to see these pictures by our very presence here have expressed solidarity with the suffering victims of this war. So that's on this, and I'm very pleased therefore that you were kind enough to call me here to launch this very striking exhibition, and that so many people have shown up to savor the photographs that you've taken at a time when no one imagined that such a terrible conflict was going to happen. Having said that, now to Sarah's question. I think India has gone through a very complicated and challenging time in negotiating, as it were, its own stand on the crisis. There's no doubt that India, in its very first statement, seemed to be a little unwilling to say anything that the Russians could be upset about. And therefore, our first explanation of vote did not convey anything about the violation of state sovereignty and the UN Charter, of the fact that we have long held force to be inadmissible to resolve disputes, and that the territory of Ukraine had been encroached upon in a way that no state will agree to see their territory encroached upon. In our subsequent statements, while we have continued to abstain on the votes at the UN, we have been a little more bold in reiterating these principles. And our diplomacy has taken into account the multifarious interests we have to look after. With Russia, we have a dependence on a military relationship, which has accounted at one time for 80% of our major weapon systems. Today, more like 50, but spare parts for the time when we had 80 are still needed from Russia. Secondly, with the West, we have a warming relationship and we can't antagonize them. We're a member of the Quad, but we don't want the US to take its eyes off Indo-Pacific and focus purely on Europe. And then, of course, Ukraine itself, we had to pull our 23,000 citizens, mainly students, out of Ukraine during the first few weeks. And I know I think that SpiceJet was one of the airlines that contributed aircraft to that effort. So because of all of these interests, there was a bit of dancing on a tightrope that went on. But increasingly, now that the students are out and that the war has not progressed as the Russians would have hoped, or with the speed the Russians would have hoped, my expectation is that India will come under more and more pressure to calibrate its stand, perhaps to press the Russians a little more to end their adventure, and at the same time to stand up for some of these principles more overtly. At the same time, I must say that our diplomacy has been effective in ensuring that there is more understanding of our position than might have been expected. And some other state taking the stand we had taken might have been given a tougher time by the world than India, because India does matter to many countries. So that's broadly the answer. Mr. Lavrov's coming is not a big surprise. Russia doesn't have too many countries where he would be welcomed as a friend in the middle of this war. And he's somebody who I've known for a very long time. He was at the UN from the early 90s. So I've really had a very impressive, very capable man, but he has a tough cause to defend on his travels, and I'm sure that the talks that he has in Delhi will be very interesting to put in mind.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have the best foreign policy mind here giving you a quick tutorial on what's going on. So if I were you, I would listen in. But I want to bring in Ajay Singh because, as Mr. Pingu pointed out, we had to get the biggest challenge before we could establish what our Mr. Diplomatic stand was to first get our citizens out. And everybody has been doing what they can in small ways within their own means. We have a Vandita here putting up her exhibition, going for a holiday, but coming back with enough audio and even most of us are happy if I can get a few pictures out on Instagram. But talking about a personal effort, we had the SpiceJet flights, which of course brought many of these Indian citizens back home. Can you take us through a little bit of what that was like?
Sure. Firstly, other than what you just said, I had very little to do with this exhibition. And my only contribution was to actually try and persuade Avantika and Prashant not to go to Ukraine. So 100,000 troops on the border, I said, you guys are going to get stuck in the war, so you better not go. But they were